Join our expedition as the team embarks on a brief mission to the remote science outpost in the middle of Greenland's ice sheet, Summit Station. What will be found as our team explores a place few get to visit in one of the coldest places on Earth? Find out in Part 5 of The New North Pole of the Winds.
The phrase went around that field science is a contact sport.
In science, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. When you go into the field, you have to think and advance carefully about all the things that can go wrong. Despite all our best efforts, sometimes the experiments fail. And that is precisely what science is you are gonna fall down a lot.
We got scraped up, equipment got destroyed, we left people behind, we got lost.
The science part is you learn from that. Take what you've learned and say, all right, next time, here's what I do differently. And document that so others wouldn't make that same mistake. So you shouldn't be fearful of taking chances. You should only be fearful of not trying hard enough.
The edge of base camp performing the radiosonde experiment. That felt very like, yes, we are doing something technical. We are sending up this instrument. We are collecting like a vertical profile of the atmosphere. That's very exciting. And then it was a lot more fun and kind of whimsical to try and do like the old style method of using the pieball and the theodolite, because it was effectively like, oh, we're launching a balloon and we're going to see if we can track it, and somehow we're going to figure out like wind speed and direction from that. So it was super neat, especially with how skillful Sean was at maneuvering these drones. We'd be launching these balloons, and our first thought was, I swear, if Sean pops that with those blades, we're going to be furious. But it was amazing to see like our balloon actually being launched, and then have the drone kind of circling around it to show like what that kind of altitude looks like, and as we started to rise up and collect the data that we needed to. So it was a really neat blend of like how the different experiments were kind of coming together.
Our camping experience in Greenland had come to a close. It was time to pack everything up back in the trucks and head back to Kegerlussuaq. However, on the way, we had a stop to make.
Good morning. Good morning. It is Sunday, and we have survived the majority of this trip. We're just now sitting here eating breakfast, and we're going to pack our tents up, and we're going to head back. And halfway back, we're going to stop at a glacier.
Coming up to Russell, you do this big hike sort of up to the top, and then you look down and you see this sheet of ice sort of going up over another ridge. You don't really get the scale of it, not yet anyway. You get to the rocks, and now you're starting to get a bit of this scale of this calving face. And the size of the glacier struck me like no other we'd ever visited.
Like a skyscraper that we were standing next to, all ice that is going to be falling off soon. It's just hard to picture the amount of water that's held there and the amount of fresh water that's all in reserves there. We had set up our stream flow device right downstream of the calving front, and when we had set it up, there was about 1.5 feet of water in the spot that it was in.
It was just so tall and beautiful, and I was just sort of like, I need to get closer to this thing. So I sort of just scrambled along the rocks. Probably got a little bit too close. Sorry, Jeremy. Though it probably wouldn't have been good where I was to be when a piece fell off. I stopped at one point, and I sort of just turned my ear toward the glacier. You just heard this deep sort of rumbling and cracking. This is such a huge structure. It's also, in my mind, it sort of also was permanent. I guess the second time we went back, I sort of realized my contradiction a bit more, because
we noticed that a huge chunk of ice had fallen
a large section had fallen flat into the river and obstructed about 2/3 of it, and then sort of off to the side, another half Moon Bay had sort of caved in.
When we went to check the stream flow monitor, all the water was gone from that spot. There was no water there at all.
This was submerged up to here at least, and we don't have any water. Which should make for a very interesting data analysis on our part.
This glacier is falling apart. It's so beautiful and amazing, and it seems so permanent, but how does it break like that?
We don't know what happened, obviously. It was a bummer in that we didn't have the data that we wanted to have. It's interesting data that we're still trying to parse through and figure out.
That spot right there is probably where I fell in love with glaciology.
They brought us out to the warehouse where they had us completely get ready for Summit Station. Being up there, you have to be prepared for like negative 10, 20 degrees.
Getting all the garb was almost worrying because I thought I might freeze.
And so they had us completely outfitted in like full parkas, fresh boots.
I felt like I could have been, I don't know, in outer space and been warm. It almost hypes you up for what this place is gonna be like.
I'm a relatively small person, so all of the equipment was kind of huge on me. I got a huge red coat by the North Face, and I just felt like a little like bean up in my coat.
It's a place so few people have been able to get to in the middle of nowhere, the North Pole of the Winds. It gets you excited to experience something that you've never experienced. And you know you've never experienced it because you've never been so bundled up before.
Okay, we're going to Summit. It's time. The thing we've all been waiting for. We're going to Summit. And I was really like excited about it, but I also like had this weird feeling. I was like, is this really happening right now? Am I really going to stand on like 10,500 feet of ice?
I got to see some very cool superglacial lakes, which are lakes on top of the ice. But the lakes were just so blue.
The blues of the meltwater against the snow and ice were just a photographer's dream.
I can see why they call that color glacier blue. It really is.
Landing at Summit Station in the Ski Bird is an extraordinary experience. First of all, you're in a plane that has skis on it, and you're landing on a runway made of ice and snow that's 15,000 feet long. There's no such thing as hitting the brakes on a runway made of ice. And it's so cold there, they can't turn the engines off. So they just leave them running the entire time you're there.
If we got off the plane, you're half blind, and so you're just sort of stumbling around and falling.
Everything was white. Everything was almost foggy and windy.
Looking around, and I just felt like I was, in the middle of a snow globe. Like I felt kind of like I had been shaken around.
But yet when you went inside a building, it felt like you were going into a ski lodge.
It's just, you look around and there's the white of the ice sheet, and then there's like the slight gray of the clouds.
It is a cold and brutal environment, and it's not one for exposed electronics. It actually killed my camera and gimbal while I was there.
We were talking to some of the cooks, learning about everybody's story, what brought them there. It was so interesting to meet all of the scientists there and all of the other people who were helping to make the Summit Station work. And then we came back.
Ya